Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. We're just giving folks a couple minutes to sign on before we get started, and we're putting some links in the chat to the OIG's beautiful report on school resource deputies, and also the link to the document we'll be discussing today. Okay, Janae, did I see that you started the recording?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ismail. All right, we're going to get started, and thank you all for joining us. Also, this meeting will be recorded. We're recording. We're also streaming live on YouTube, you're welcome to send folks to our YouTube page who missed the conversation tonight to watch what we did. So today's April 17th, 2024. My name is Wendy Julian. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the executive director of the Probation Oversight Commission. I work for the county for the Board of Supervisors directly. I know you get to hear from me often as the facilitator of public comment for the Probation Oversight Commission. Tonight, I'm actually going to be giving the presentation and also facilitating your comments. So we are here tonight to talk about the school resource deputy complaint process that came about due to a motion by the Board of Supervisors. But we're going to leave most of the time tonight for you all to give feedback. That's the whole point of our town hall, and we'd really love to hear from you. So before we start, I want to say a few words of gratitude. I want to say thank you to Supervisor Mitchell and her staff for leading this effort, drafting the motion, convening dozens of meetings leading up to this, and also listening closely to community members and what they're doing. Thank you very much to Supervisor Solis for co-authoring, for believing in this process, and to the supervisors, all 5 of them, for unanimously passing the motion. A special thanks to my colleagues at the Probation Oversight Commission, Donisha Smith and Dee Dee Jones, who developed this process that we're going to be talking about tonight after a lot of research and thought and meetings and looking into what community members had recommended. Thank you to my colleagues at County Council, in particular, Emra Kirby and Michelle Jackson. They have helped us with the development of this process, and most importantly, they're drafting the ordinance change, which we'll talk about later. Thanks to my sister commission over at the Civilian Oversight Commission. They took up this work first as a commission doing oversight. They also solicited input from literally thousands of people about school resource deputies. They've continually had this as an agenda item. They've kept the issue at the forefront. I'd like to say thank you to the Inspector General's office, especially Dara Williams. You'll see the link in the chat to the OIG's report on school resource deputies. It is very much the reason that this issue has come about based on the data and the recommendations that they put forward. I'm also very thankful to LACO and the Department of Youth Development, DYD, with their collaboration and helping us move forward. Mostly, I would like to say thank you to the LA County Sheriff's Department. Throughout my time working with them, which is a new experience, of course, because we are the Probation Oversight Commission, I found the team at the Sheriff's Department to be open-minded, collaborative, responsive, and most importantly, supportive of the idea that we're creating this mechanism that might result in them receiving more complaints. So I'm thankful that some of them are here tonight. I'll introduce the folks that are here on the panel in a moment. But the ultimate reason that we're here tonight, and where I'll wrap up this intro and get into business, is the countless advocates, the advocacy groups, the parents, the students who have stood up for the rights and needs of children, and who they're constantly pushing us, pushing the county to do better for our children. I'm very thankful to the folks who've been willing to share their personal stories and for fighting the good fight. Thank you for your efforts, and I look forward to hearing from you tonight. I know that that's what the point of the meeting is, and I want to say that, I don't often share much about myself, but when I applied for this job with the Probation Oversight Commission, I told the supervisors that they weren't hiring someone who was neutral on the issues of criminal justice reform and civilian oversight. In fact, that's particularly true on this issue. I have personal experience with one of my children having been arrested by an officer based on school, not a school resource deputy, because it was in a different jurisdiction. And I know what it feels like. And I really appreciate the fact that people are willing and able to share their stories because it's difficult when we're talking about our children and our desire to protect them, both against issues of injustice as well as against what might happen to them when we share those stories. So thank you for being brave. And I want you to help me make this process better. So as I told you, we're recording tonight. And we're also broadcasting live on our YouTube page, but there's no interaction with people on the YouTube page. We're not engaging with viewers there. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LA County POC. For more information about our meetings, you can look back at all of our recordings. And I wanted to make sure that everyone understands that today's meeting is not a public meeting of the Probation Oversight Commission. We don't have commissioners here. We're not taking any action tonight, and it's not governed by the Brown Act. That's why we're able to do it virtually. And as such, we are going to have lots of public comment, but we don't have to be as strict about how we go forward with the public comment. So we're going to set a clock for 2 minutes just so that we can make sure that everyone has a chance to speak, but I'm not going to cut you off. And also, you are more than willing or more than able to ask questions of the panelists rather than just make comment. And if we have the answers, we will answer them for you. If you want to give public comment, and I'll explain this again later, I use the little raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen, and it'll put your name in the queue and I'll be able to call on you. Or if you're calling on the phone, you can dial *6 on your phone and it'll put you in the queue. I'm sorry, not *6, *3. Dial *3, it'll put you in the queue. It raises your hand. Then when we call on you, you dial *6 and that unmutes you. If you don't want to talk tonight, you can send us an email at info@poc.lacounty.gov. You do not need to memorize that. Because Janae is going to put it in the chat. So please don't send your comments though in the chat because we'd really rather get them at the email and we're not going to be sharing them with all the panelists. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos. Ya hemos iniciado la conferencia por WebEx y YouTube. Y le damos una cordial bienvenida a miembros de la comunidad que prefieren hacer sus comentarios públicos en español. Lo único que tiene que hacer para hacer su comentario en español es oprimir el botoncito de la mano que está en la parte baja de la página. O también si está llamando por teléfono, marcar *3 y nosotros le llamamos. Vamos a darle 2 minutos para su comentario y 2 minutos para traducción, pero hoy, como estamos en una situación más informal, no vamos a parar sus comentarios al terminar los 2 minutos. Si tiene una pregunta, puede hacerle una pregunta a un panelista específico o también puede escribir su comentario vía correo electrónico al email que está en la cajita de chat. I'd ask for you to follow the following communication guidelines when you give your public comment today. Please share your name and share your thoughts and be respectful of time so that we can get through this meeting with as many people speaking as possible. Please remain respectful to each other and the setting, honor equity and participation, practice grace and openness, and speak your own truth. So we have some folks who are on the panel with us today. We have Amra Kirby, who is my colleague at County Council, who will be helping draft the ordinance, although I think you'll hear in my explanation later that while we certainly warmly accept public comments about the ordinance, it is in fact the process of receiving complaints that is where we need and want more of the community input. We also have 2 representatives that have been working closely with us on this process from LASD. We're very thankful for their participation tonight, but also in helping us learn more about LASD's complaint process in general and how we will be able to appropriately be part of that. That's Commander Rodney Moore and Captain Jeffrey Diedrich. So thank you both very much for being here, and thanks to Amra. So we're going to talk a little bit about the motion and about OIG's report. We're going to talk about the ordinance change, and then I'm going to go through the proposed process. So the motion was passed in December of 2023. As I said, it was Supervisor Mitchell, co-authored by Supervisor Solis. And there were quite a few directives in the motion. We were instructed, along with County Council and many other collaborating organizations, to draft a change to the ordinance, to develop a process for receiving community complaints and avoid duplication. I'm going to talk a lot about that. To work with the school districts and the LA Sheriff's Department in making sure that we are linking into their existing complaint processes. Then also OIG is working, that's Office of Inspector General, working on updated language for the contracts. That's separate from the discussion tonight. And we're supposed to convene public meetings to get input. That's what we're doing here. And then very importantly, we're supposed to report back on the data about complaints that we receive to the board and the public. So one of the obvious questions here is why the Probation Oversight Commission? So the board actually, it was nice to hear the board's rationale for that during the board meeting in December. They mentioned that myself and my team are youth development professionals. That is absolutely true. Most of us have spent our career doing this work, and I was very pleased to know that that was partially why. We also have worked very hard over our 3-year history to build a culture of community engagement. And I'm pleased that the board sees that and wants for us to continue that. We are interested. I'm very interested in this issue, as I've told you, and we want to be able to move forward. And then also there's another direct link. School resource deputies are actually, I think, the one place where the Civilian Oversight, the Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Commission and the Probation Oversight Commission have a dual interest. And that's because young people who end up being arrested and booked and brought to juvenile hall end up in the probation system. So we actually do have a direct interest in looking at the school to prison pipeline and issues that might lead to young people coming into the probation system, which explains partially why we're interested. So the Probation Oversight Commission was developed 3 years ago. Well, it was developed about 5 years ago, but launched 3 years ago in February of 2021. And we, by the name, you can tell, are providing oversight of the probation department, including acting as the liaison between the probation department and the Board of Supervisors, providing advice and recommendations. And that's exactly how the ordinance describes us. So in order to accept and refer complaints for LA Sheriff's Department school resource deputies, we need a change in the ordinance. That change is what Amra and her colleagues at County Council are working on. It's going to end up being really just a couple of sentences. It's a very straightforward, basic change that says the Probation Oversight Commission can accept, receive, and refer complaints from community members about school resource deputies to the LA Sheriff's Department. So that change will have to be voted upon by the board, and there will be a public process by which it will be vetted, and there'll be an opportunity for public comment. But I think you'll see once that draft is shared that that change is very basic. So we're going to focus tonight on the actual process, and that's certainly where I think that the members of the public may have the most interest is in what is the process and how will the Probation Oversight Commission step into this role, and what will that look like? So one important thing I want to say about the process is that the Probation Oversight Commission will not be investigating complaints. I'm going to say that again. The Probation Oversight Commission will not be investigating complaints. That's for a number of reasons. It's because we don't have the authority to do so. It's because there is an existing complaint process within the LA Sheriff's Department. And perhaps most importantly, we do not have the authority to review any confidential information that comes from the LA Sheriff's Department. So in other words, if you call me with a complaint and you want me to investigate it, I wouldn't be able to get the information needed to investigate the complaint. So what this process is receiving complaints and referring them to the LA Sheriff's Department. And then probably most importantly in terms of accountability, reporting back on what those trends look like in the complaints. So we're going to go through the process as we have developed it. So if you can pull up the referenced document that's in the chat, And Ismail, if I could ask you to click on that so we can pull it up just to look at it, if that doesn't screw up your slides, I'd love to just make sure people know what I'm talking about. Well, I want to go to the timeline next, but do you mind just pulling up the actual attachment? Sorry to throw a wrench in the plan here. So this document is available on our website. If you go to poc.lacounty.gov and click on meetings and then town halls, you'll see this town hall tonight, and there's a little link that says attachments, and that's what we'll pull up. It's a PDF document that says discussion drafts. What I should have done is put it on the slides. Obviously, I apologize for that. Do you want us to skip over this, Ismail?
No, I just have to download it and save
Oh,
it to
sorry.
my desktop and then pull it up as a file.
No problem. Sorry about that. So what you're going to see is absolutely a draft. There is nothing here that is predetermined. There are a few limitations, as I described, as far as the Probation Oversight Commission's ability to investigate. This is the document. Thank you very much, Ismail. So we are doing two things. We're establishing a process that's independent from LASD so that we can receive and refer complaints. And then second, County Council, with our input, is amending the POC's ordinance. So Ismail, can you scroll down to the next page? So what I'm hopeful for is that you all can pull up this document and look at it yourselves on your phone or on your laptop, because these are the questions that we're going to be asking that we want information on. So the first thing that we want to know about is about the complaint form itself. And we want to know that the questions and the way that we've asked them are things that make sense to community members. We want to know that we're asking all the relevant information, but not too much information. We want to make sure that we're explaining what the process is so that folks feel comfortable and safe in making this process, but also that we correctly inform folks of what is going to happen, meaning that the complaint will be referred to LASD. So if I'm sorry to do this to you, Ismail, but can we go back to the slide now to the timeline?
No problem.
So again, that document that Ismail is showing is what is in the chat under the referenced document can be found here. You'll also see on that document that we have started building out a toolkit. That's actually something we saw from a different jurisdiction that has a similar complaint process. So that toolkit hopefully will help answer everybody's questions. Thank you very much, Ismail. So let's go to the timeline. Okay, so in the timeline, you can see that the person who's complaining, which could be the student, it could be a parent, it could be a community member, will submit the online form. Then the POC will respond. That means a member of my staff will contact the person directly. They'll get, if they submit the form online, they'll get an immediate response, an automated email, but then they'll get a personalized response either via email or phone call quickly in order to get the ball rolling. Then we will, my staff will follow up with the person who's making the complaint and talk them through the information. So do we have all the information? Do we have supporting documents? Do we have information about witnesses? Do we have a good understanding of what the complaint is? And at that time, we'll talk to the person making the complaint about their options. their option, if they want the complaint investigated, is for us to send the complaint to LASD. So we're going to develop a process by which we will submit those complaints to LASD. They will confirm receipt of those complaints to us, and then they will begin their investigation. So that little oval around LASD investigation begins is actually the same process that occurs now. LASD has a robust complaint investigation process, and the outcome of that complaint is sometimes not available to be shared. And to give you some very specific examples of that, if a complaint is submitted and it involves a human resources personnel question, the complainant is not going to find out what the result is, whether someone was disciplined, for example. But there will be, there is, and we can let our LASD representatives describe this in more detail. This case is complete letter that is sent to the person that has made the complaint. Also, that will be the role of the POC to ensure that that process comes to a conclusion and is reported. And then there may be an appeals process through the LASD process that we can talk more about. And then most importantly, we will take those complaints that we have received and fully anonymize them, but provide information to the Board of Supervisors and the public about any trends. So I'm sure you can think of some trends that might be interesting to you, like, is there one school where we get a lot of complaints? Is there a particular type of complaint that is most common? Is there a particular demographic of student who is most likely to be submitting a complaint? So those are the types of reporting mechanisms that we will have in order to do that. So we can move on to the next slide, which is the beginning of our questions for you. So we'd like to know whether you think that the complaint form as we've developed it is easy to understand. Are there any questions that are unclear or confusing? And then we'd also like to know what additional, you can go to the next slide, what additional information or resources we should include in the toolkit. For those of you who have experienced misconduct or potentially even filed a complaint in the past, what were some of the obstacles you faced in trying to submit a complaint? From your perspective, how can the POC make this complaint process easier? And then finally, what are some strategies for outreach? How can we make sure that parents and students are aware of this initiative? We're obviously able to use our social media, but are there other effective communication channels to reach out to parents and students impacted by this issue? So those are the main questions that we have for you today, although you're certainly welcome to share any other thoughts that you have about the process. I think with that, I'm going to wrap up my comments and start with asking you all to comment. Perhaps the best strategy is to pull up again that actual complaint form, Ismael, and I can show people what we're talking about. Sorry to make you keep going back and forth. So if you'd like to make a comment, I'd like to invite you to use the raise your hand function. Click on the little raise your hand button at the bottom or dial *3 if you're calling. So on like page 2.5 of this document, you can see the complaint form. It's actually split between the two pages. Perhaps the most challenging part that I've learned while learning more about the school resource deputy is in question number 1. Can you go back to the previous page? Thank you. Question number 1 says the name of the school. And the reason that this is complicated, of course, is that LA Sheriff's deputies only serve as school resource deputies at schools where there is a contract and jurisdiction for them to serve. So many schools do have law enforcement, but they are not LA Sheriff's deputies. They are school resource officers. They're sometimes private security officers or they're school employees. And so we will only be accepting complaints related to school resource deputies who work at schools that have contracts for school resource deputies. So there are 127 schools. And if your child goes to a school where you have a complaint that is not on that list, we cannot accept a formal complaint for you. However, we have developed a process internally about how we are going to appropriately refer folks to the right agency. As far as law enforcement, that's pretty easy to do. We also have had significant conversations with the LA County Office of Education about how to help parents and students file complaints related to the school that isn't about the school resource deputy. So there is, in fact, a universal complaint process for schools that is it's an external complaint process that's very fleshed out, and we will be able to refer folks to that universal complaint process by which they could make a school-related complaint that's not about school resource deputies. So I think we've covered most of the grounds there, but certainly we will, because it's just our culture of our agency, be willing to support people in getting to where they need to get to make complaints that aren't related to SRDs. Then we're going to ask about who's making the complaint, about whether the student's receiving education services, some demographic information, and then ask the complainant to give us some information about the complaint on the form. This is going to be an online process because it's going to feed into a database that we have so that we can keep track of it and make sure that we provide all of the important information to the Sheriff's Department. So with that, I am going to turn it over to public comment. We have a few people who have raised their hands already, and I'd like to invite all of you to do so. We're going to start with call-in user number 6. Your number starts with 661. We're putting the clock up just for your own reference, but as long as you're talking on topic, you can talk about your thoughts and we can have a discussion about it, or you can share them with us. So call-in user 6, please dial *6. No, am I making that up? Yes, *6, and you'll unmute yourself. There we go.
Can everyone hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. You never know when I'm calling in. So hi, this is Raquel Derfler. I'm with Cancel the Contract AV. So I wanted to call in and really thank the commission for really realizing that there is a need for a separate and independent complaint system for our students when it comes to school resource deputies. Out here in the Antelope Valley, we have been under a settlement agreement, the Sheriff's Department has since 2015 for unconstitutional policing practices towards our brown and black communities. We understand that these biases do not stop when a deputy is stationed in the schools. So we're very well aware of harm that's being perpetrated on our community members, continues into that school setting. And so it's really rare that a student would feel comfortable even saying anything if an incident occurs with that resource deputy. If they do feel comfortable, they're definitely not going to feel comfortable having to go to the Sheriff's Department and lodge that complaint against the deputy and then have to go back to school with that same deputy there in that environment. So once again, just happy that we are having some type of movement, some type of acknowledgement that we need a place where students and parents can go to bring up and address issues that have happened to them in the school setting. So thank you.
Thank you, Raquel, and thank you for bringing up the Antelope Valley. The Office of Inspector General's report very clearly indicates particular geographies where we need to do outreach. And my team member, Belinda Mellado, who's been very helpful in helping us to develop this process, has been to the Antelope Valley multiple times. And certainly it is our intent to continue to do outreach to folks in Palmdale, Lancaster, and other places in the AB. So thank you for that reminder. We're going to go next to call-in user number 8. Your number starts with 213. Dial *6 and you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Eric. My child is right now currently going to school in the Compton area, and I believe the sheriffs are those like school police. But where my son was living with me, the school, they had school police. And then I went ahead and tried to file a complaint. I filed a complaint with the police station in regards to the, because I believe that they're supposed to give you a written notice when they remove your child from school, or from any government institution or agency. They have to notify the parents with, I believe it's a law. They have to give you some type of verification, a written statement, the officer that was there that removed the child that was present there. And I never got that. And when you try to get him, like at first the principal was very, like she said, she told the social worker that he's always been properly dressed for the weather and clean, and he's always on time. I mean, always present at school since the day of enrollment. Now, when I went back and tried getting more information, she told me I had to talk to the social worker because that's what what's the person above the principal, what's the guy that's on top of the principal?
The superintendent, maybe?
Yeah, the superintendent. That the superintendent had said that they could not communicate with me anymore. Anything I needed to be through my social worker. But do you know how that sounds to somebody that their kid's been removed with no exigent circumstances, no non-accidental harm, or no imminent danger to the child, and he's been attending school, not absent since enrolled, and he's like, even the principal said, he's always properly dressed for the weather, he's always clean, and he hasn't been absent since enrolled. And for some reason, the social worker removed him, and down the line, like I ended up, like right now, it's been already over a year, and I've done everything that I needed according to the court, but I feel like it's just, I want to know what further, how can you guys assist me? I'm not really, I came kind of late into the webinar.
Eric, thank you very much for calling. And Captain Dietrich, I'm going to invite you to unmute yourself if you want. It's hard for me to tell from that description whether or not we're talking about sheriff's jurisdiction or not.
Well, now they're in the sheriff's jurisdiction because it's, I know there's no LAPD over there, there's sheriff's.
So I'm not quite understanding exactly what school or where that is. Kind of how he was alluding, it sounded like school police at first, but I'm not sure.
So that's what I heard as well. Eric, I'd like to invite you. I know you're calling in, which makes it hard for us to give you my information, but I'd like to invite you to, Janae, I'm asking for your help here about how you think we can get information to him, to get my phone number and or Belinda's phone number to Eric so that we can talk to him about his concern and make sure he's headed in the right direction. We may have the full contact information on our registration. Is that possible?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm ready to write it down. What was it you were going to give me?
All right, that's great. You can send, well, let's see. My cell phone number at the commission is, I'm going to give this to you, and anyone who's listening can write it down. It's not a secret. 213-308 8373.
Who do I ask for again?
That's me, Wendy.
Haley?
Wendy.
Oh, Wendy.
And I may refer you to my colleague Belinda, but we'll both talk to you about how we can make sure that you are getting your complaint to the right place. Thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it. Will you call me tomorrow? Okay, we're going to go next to Irma Cooper. Welcome, Irma. I'm so happy you're here. You may need to unmute yourself. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, yes, my name is Irma Cooper. Some people on the call know that I sit on the LA Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Commission, but I'm here tonight to just learn a little bit more. I have read your document, and I just had some concerns about it. I think it would be nice at the end of the document, you put what all the acronyms mean, just for the general public who may not understand. And then on the intake portion, number 10, I just think the time of the interaction is very important. So instead of having that as optional, ask people to give you an estimate time versus leaving it like that. And the same thing with number 15, because I know rather than putting optional, just put if known, especially on the officer's badge number, because in the Black community, we will look for that number. So that would be nice. And then where you have internal POC procedure, it would be nice to maybe call it advocate intake, because that's what you're doing since you really don't have the power to do the full investigation. And then the other thing I don't understand is who determines whether or not the schools get the sheriff department or these outside agencies? And then do you have any data of the complaints for these non-sheriff agencies that are on the school campuses? And I think that covers what I wanted to comment about. Thank you.
Thanks, Irma. Don't mute yourself yet. Say again the part that you said about who determines if the schools get which agencies? Can you tell me more?
Yeah,
about-
you mentioned that some of the schools do not have sheriff
Right.
employee resource people on the school campus. They may be hired by a private officer or a private agency or someone else. But I'm wondering who determines whether or not a school gets the sheriff's department or a private agency or some other type of people coming onto the campus. How is that determined? And are we keeping data on how many complaints these non-sheriff agencies have with our children?
Right. Yeah, so the answer to the last question, unfortunately, is no. We don't have a way to collect data or share it about non-sheriff's agencies and complaints. Actually, I'm going to ask Commander Moore, Captain Dietrich, can you talk about how schools decide whether they're going to have a school resource deputy or not? Is that something you feel comfortable addressing?
It's Captain Diedrich. I can address that. The schools that choose to have a school resource deputy, and sometimes it's done where it's not an individual school, it might be a series of schools. It's done through contractual contracts with the school district, with the sheriff's department through contract law. Matter of fact, you mentioned it earlier where we're talking about a series of recommendations from the Office of Inspector General that have been recommended to be in the contract for the forthcoming school year. So any school district that desires to have a school resource deputy, they get those by doing a contract.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much, Irma, for all of your thoughts. I appreciate it. And we look forward to hearing more from you. Thanks for being here, Adrina. You're up next. You're unmuted.
I want to thank you guys for doing a meeting like this and referencing the school to prison pipeline. I have a lot to say about my experiences dealing with the Rolling Unified School District, and their deputies will be the City of Industry Police. Oh, and this is more of a complaint towards the City of Industry Sheriff Department. You know, my son, boxing, football champion, almost a straight A student. And another student dispatched a gunman on campus to go after my child. Give me a moment.
Can you pause the timer?
And the school protected the wrong kid because I look gang affiliated and I have tattoos, and nobody would help me. And because they protected the wrong kid, my son got shot. And I've been complaining to the sheriff's department. I don't know how many times I was calling them, and no one would help me. They wouldn't take my complaint against the school. I contacted Mr. Garcia from Giano. He fled his position. Now he's in Sierra Vista Covina district due to bad judgment. They protected that. And so nobody would help me. I went and I protested in the streets and I handed out flyers to my community. And do you know what the sheriffs did to me? They flew a helicopter in my house the next day and held my 13-year-old son at gunpoint just to laugh at him and say wrong person. And just for him to deal with that type of trauma, and a good kid as he is, he did not deserve that. My family did not deserve that. But again, this is what's going on within our schools. Now I have an investigation open with the school and the investigator. Who's going to investigate the investigators? They're fabricating evidence saying that the kid that dispatched a hitman on school campus was attending my son's birthday parties. I'm a single mother. I can never afford a birthday party for my son, even though that kid deserves the world. And this is what we are subject to in our communities. And this is why a lot of communities lost trust in the sheriff's department. Who's going to protect our kids when they're the ones making, according to them, mistakes like that? A mistake like that should never be made, especially when I'm doing something positive. I'm promoting the school to prison pipeline for people in our community to stay in school, to invest the money you guys take to incarcerate them and invest it in their education. And that's my comments. And I hope there's more meetings about this because there's a lot more that needs to be addressed that's going on in that school district. And I'm still fighting that battle today. And this happened back in Thank you.
Wendy, you're muted.
Oh, well, maybe that's why they can't hear me. Thank you, Ismael. We're going to go next to Dana Moore. Thank you, Adrina, for your comments today.
You hear me?
We can.
Oh, so I seen an incident that happened on 108th and Western, where a kid was getting bullied, and they jumped him, and he had a gun, and he shot the kids that was like had him on the ground, beating him up. So he's in jail for shooting him, and one of the kids is dead. So I wanted to know, these kids is from Washington High. And I wanted to know if what type of does the sheriff have with the kids at the high school, or if they even have one, or if you guys have any sheriffs or school police at Washington High, because I'm pretty sure this incident was going on and led up to all this, and I feel like they should have some type of patrol around the schools when school is letting out, so these kind of incidents won't happen. Innocent bystanders could have got shot the other day when that happened. So can you just answer this question? What kind of setup do the sheriff department or the school police have for these type of kids that go to these schools and they know they causing problems? What kind of patrol do they have after school when they getting out of school?
Captain Diedrich or Commander Moore, you want to address how the after school situation works with SRDs?
Like, so sometimes, apologize for that. Oftentimes, and then depending, and I don't have the data in front of me, I might hear in a few minutes, but about that specific school. But quite often, let's say you have an SRD, that's one deputy. And so there's no way one deputy is going to be able to be around the entire perimeter of a school, but there is a program that was called Safe Passages. And Safe Passages was a program where additional deputies would be in and around the school in the morning time as school's going starting, and then at the conclusion to the schools to the school day. So you had additional resources. Most often it's traffic control, making sure that the flow of traffic is proper. However, that also puts them there for a presence for, such as an argument that began on campus. Quite often those incidents may result in a fight or an assault off campus. And so it puts them in those areas. I could also look up that and follow up with her to give her the exact data, because I don't want to give her the wrong thing, and I'm not sure if that even has a school resource deputy or if it's even ours. But there are various programs in certain schools that do put additional resources in and around the school, but not every school has that because the resources are so scarce. And so that's one of the challenges that we face. Even with a contracted SRD, that's one deputy at that school, where in this situation, you need more than one to effectively provide that safety and security at the conclusion of the school day.
Yeah, and
Thank you. Thank you.
Wendy,
Oh, go ahead.
Just to piggyback off of what Jeff said, I'm not sure if Washington does have a SRD like Jeff said, but if there are concerns about the safety of the children around critical times of the school day, so basically when school is letting out or when school is beginning, she could reach out to the captain at South LA, Nicole Palomino, and voice her concerns and see if there's any available resources to do patrol checks around that school during those critical hours.
Thank you for that. And Dana, thank you for your comment. And please feel free to send an email. You'll see the email in the chat, info@poc.lacounty.gov, and I can get you connected to those folks that Commander Moore and Captain Dietrich just said. Also, Captain Dietrich said something that reminds me. So we're developing this process with the Probation Oversight Commission right now to receive and refer complaints, but certainly there's nothing stopping anyone from filing a complaint directly with the Sheriff's Department now through the existing process. In fact, that hasn't changed at all. So, and won't change going forward. People will still be able to file complaints directly with the Sheriff's Department. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and that's something I should have described in the first place. And the second piece of that is that I think you've really illustrated one of the points, which is you heard me say there are 127 schools, but there aren't 127 school resource deputies. So what Captain Dietrich said is true. Even in addition to that, there are some schools that share deputies. We're not talking about a number. So we have to look at the list to make sure that the school is on the list to be able to move forward. But if not, we certainly can send you in the right direction. Thank you for your comments today. And next up is my colleague, Charmaine Mosley from the Civilian Oversight Commission. Thanks for being here, Charmaine.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. My name is Charmaine Mosley. I'm the Executive Director for the Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Commission. So thank you so much for having this town hall tonight. This is a very, very important topic. I've been involved with civilian oversight for a very, very long time. So trying to look at ways to improve complaint processes is right up my alley. So thank you so much for this. Two suggestions I have. One is the flow chart, going back to the flow chart. I would like to see, if possible, like where it says that the investigation is beginning, maybe put in there a box that says the investigation is complete. And I guess that comes right before the appeals box. So that was one. And then the other thing is, I think California law, California Penal Code section 148.6, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm trying to do this. 148.6 A2 requires for complaints that are filed against peace officers. And I don't know if the school resource deputies are considered, some of them are considered peace officers, for them to add to their complaints. That is against the law to make a complaint that is known to be false. And there's some other language that falls in there. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Charmaine. So I think your point about the investigation being complete, it's something my staff and I have talked about developing a system by which we have regular check-ins with our liaison from LASD to determine and make sure that folks have been properly notified about things being complete. I'm sure you're correct about that. What you bring up about the false reports is something that we have been discussing at length with OIG and LASD and County Council, which is about some of the risks associated with this complaint process and ensuring that we provide a lot of information to people as they are engaging in the complaint process about some of those potential risks. And by risks, I mean what you brought up. That's a great example of one, but also ensuring that they know that we're sending this information to the Sheriff's Department, ensuring that they know that if there is a disclosure that someone is going to commit a crime or harm against someone else, that's something that we will be reporting. If there's a disclosure of child abuse or neglect, that's a mandated reporter issue, we'll be disclosing that. So making sure that people understand what they're doing when they call us or email us to make a complaint. So thank you for bringing that up. And that's definitely something at my top of mind because we want to make sure that this is in fact a safe and effective process that's used to improve the system and used to protect children and their families and not used for any other purpose. Thank you. I don't see any other hands. Yes, I do. Let's see here. We've got call-in user 3661. I think that's Raquel. I'd love to hear what else you have to say, Raquel. Can we unmute, or can you dial *6 and unmute yourself?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, my name is Judith Jones, and I'm calling from up here in the AV. I'm also very connected to Raquel Doeffler and the Council of the Contract Committee up here that is doing a fantastic job with this, along with some great people I have had the pleasure of meeting there at the Probation Oversight Commission and all that you guys are doing. I'm going to keep my story brief, but I have a son who's 29 years old, and he grew up in the school system up here in the AV with the school police along with the security that were need, but the police, I don't feel, because all that money that was put into that could have gone into other helpful programs like mentorship, mental health, maybe assessment, after-school programs, etc. Because again, when my son was constantly getting, in and out of quote-unquote trouble, according to someone there at the school, be a teacher or the volunteers on the school grounds, and instead of, again, recognizing, maybe this young man needs some resources that we can provide for him, suggest to his mother, as I constantly reached out, asking, crying, because all he was ever done was cited into court, the juvenile courthouse that was up here on 10th Street, Weston Avenue, and that had kids in there lined up every single day, and of course they were of color. The courthouses stayed full, the judges stayed paid, the probation officers stayed paid, but when I would ask, what programs do you guys offer? I would even ask his probation officer. Here it is, he's 12, 13 years old. He's on probation. Are we kidding? But that's what was going on up here. He's 29. He's actually in prison now for the very first time. He's been in and out of jail, in and out of juvie, in and out of camp, and I've cried every tear. I've reached out for all types of help, never gotten any, and now he's in prison. So he is truly living proof of the school to prison pipeline. It affects the entire family. It affects the entire household. You don't even know all that I've been through. But my real complaint and argument is, again, when I would ask his probation officer, the schools, the teacher, what can we do? I mean, all they offered him was VITA, which was another program ran by the Sheriff's Department. Well, if you have a student or a young person that's having troubles, that clearly wasn't the answer, and that was the only answer they gave. But when I went to a recent resource fair that I go to many because I like to get different pieces of information that our areas and communities offer that a lot of times we don't know unless we go to these, I came across two young men that had a table called Friends of the Children, Los Angeles. And I asked them, I said, what is this? And they said, oh, it's a mentorship program. I said, really? I said, how long have you guys been around? And I can't remember the exact number, but it was years. And I thought, wow. When I was asking for help for my son, for my family, for him to get the necessary, resources and attention that he could possibly help him, because citing him into court, camp, juvenile hall did nothing, because even the probation officers down there, Barry J. Nordoff, said it was very sad that the majority of the children they got at Sylmar Juvenile Hall were from up here in the AV, and the majority of them were of color. Not shocking, but very sad then and still now. So when these two young men told me that this mentorship program has been around for years, and I had to hold back the tears to think like, wow, if just someone at one of his many schools, because he was actually to the point where they told him he could not go to any school in the Antelope Valley School District. And I thought, well, where is he supposed to go to school? And they looked at me like, that's not our problem or we're concerned, Ms. Jones, that's yours. And so I just have to speak for myself and probably many other mothers that I know that have been through the same thing I did. Some of his friends are even in jail now, and those were the ones that you would have never thought. So that has no, how do I want to say the word? I'm drawing a blank, but it has nothing to do with the type of upbringing, if it's a one-parent, two-parent home, if it's a nice neighborhood or not, because, again, this type of stuff just really has no respect of person. And so my complaint is the probation department made a grip of money off of the judges, the courthouses, the officers, and the actual probation department as a whole when they just constantly cited these kids into court, locked them up, and that was the answer when, again, if some of this money could have been put into other resources that would have addressed the actual problem, because it took a female deputy with the VITA program when she called me and told me to come pick my son up from the VITA program because it wasn't helping him. And I just wept because I thought maybe this would be the answer, because that was the only answer I was ever really given of any type of help. And she asked me, she said, Ms. Jones, please stop crying. She said, because I'm a mother before I'm a deputy. She said, me and all the other officers who run this program spent our entire lunch period talking about your son. She said, Ms. Jones, let me ask you something. Did something happen to him when he was little? And all I could do was cry, and maybe a light bulb went off, and I thought, wow, she was the only one who ever even expressed a drip-drop iota of concern as to maybe what's wrong with your son is deeper and bigger than VITA, juvenile hall, camp, jail. But at that point, I don't want to say it was too late, but it felt like it to me. But just the fact that she said that, and all I could say is that this, and I'm pretty much done, is I've said it till I can't say it anymore. Again, how about putting money and resources to help these kids of color, whether it was a father in the home or father absent from the home, whether it was some other issue, maybe they were molested, maybe this, we could go on to a bunch of maybes, but locking them up, putting them on probation, putting them in camp, putting them in jail clearly was not the answer then. It's not the answer now. And I would just love to see what resources are being talked about other than school deputies, school policing, that will help families and children who do experience, issues or troubles that need some addressing, like I said, mentorship, counseling, after-school programs, mental health assessment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you so much, Judith. I appreciate you sharing your story with us. We're going to go next to Cynthia Mesa. Cynthia, you may need to unmute yourself. There we go. Oh,
Are you
we
able
can
to-
hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so kind of to piggyback off of, well, my name's Cynthia. I'm with the Youth Justice Coalition in South Central Los Angeles. The legal clinic assistant. I help with the diversion programs and stuff like that with juveniles in our area. And kind of to piggyback off of what the parent had just shared, I feel that the whatever funding they're trying to give, I guess, to sheriffs and stuff like that, it should actually be rerouted into the school, because a lot of the times these kids are often, because like she said, something happens, they face whatever traumatic incidents that happen in their life, and they do not get the help with it, neither do the parents or the family, and it just manifests into other stuff that everybody kind of forgets about the original traumatic situation that happened with them. And so I feel it would actually be, beneficial, and studies have shown it actually is beneficial if schools actually became a social emotional environment. That would mean, retraining teachers, because a lot of the time, I know the kids are handfuls, but because like the previous parent just stated, there's usually something going on outside of the school environment that is, messing with them. So when they go into school, they act out. And then, I understand teachers, they, after a while, lose patience, and it's a wear and tear on both of them. And then a lot of times, some teachers, they don't help the situation. They actually further traumatize the child, and a lot of times they end up now, almost every kid who gets in trouble consistently is put into special education just because the teacher doesn't want to deal with them in their classroom. But then that takes away from the student to actually be able to grow, because they're just put in special education, and then special education starts suffering because they're already like a very normally we're a smaller section of the school, and now they're being overwhelmed with all these students that don't even have learning disabilities. They have unhealed trauma that they're dealing with, and nobody's addressing that. I guess, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but Kaiser did the ACEs study, that manifests into a lot of different issues, and I believe that would be a big way to stop the school to prison pipeline, because a lot of times it is the youth that are color that are going through this. I mean, whites go through it too, not saying that they don't, but in the areas that we live in right now, we're seeing it more prominently in youth of color. And like I said, I've done this work with youth, and I've seen it firsthand that the whole, social emotional environment actually is very beneficial for them, because it also helps them learn and develop their interpersonal, problem solving and skills and stuff like that. So I would suggest, we need to start funding the correct routes, because so far the ones that you guys been doing, unfortunately, haven't been helping. And if we actually say we care about the kids, we need to actually do something. That's it.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thanks for being here and for your comments. We're going to go next to call-in user number 661-965. You may need to dial *6 to mute yourself. There we go.
Hey there. Sorry. Yes, it's Raquel again from Cancel the Contract. So, yeah, I just really want to commend Miss Judy, who's a part of our coalition, because she has the most powerful story about the reality of the school to prison pipeline, the harm it does, and then just also the helplessness that parents feel, and kind of going back to talking about, how does a student or a parent trust the police to investigate themselves? So, when a student makes that complaint, but just want to uplift really Judy's story and her bravery. And there's just so many folks like that out here in the Antelope Valley, but they're just too afraid to share their story. There's many current and former students that are just too traumatized to share their story. So just want again to thank Miss Judy for being a part of our coalition and having that bravery to share with you all her own personal journey.
Thanks, Raquel, and agreed. It's the only way for us to go forward. We're going to go next to Pierre Ariella. Welcome, Pierre. You can begin.
Pierre Arriola, thank you so much for having me. I am the Transformative Justice Team Manager of the LA County Commission on Human Relations. I first want to begin by acknowledging all of the emotional labor, really, of Cancel the Contract Antelope Valley, the Youth Justice Coalition, and the countless many parents and youth that have come forth to share their stories here at with the POC, with the COC, and with various other county bodies to really advance change efforts in our community. So thank you. I commend you, and it's definitely not an easy feat to have to speak truth to power. The Human Relations Commission undertook a narrative collection process in the Antelope Valley recently, where we gathered community experiences related to school resource deputies and the impact of the Sheriff's Department on the school community. We heard many of the similar stories that you've been hearing today, and that I'm sure you've heard at prior meetings. Much of the harm and hurt that has been caused is brought upon to the community due to law enforcement interactions and misconduct. One of the things that is very much a through line throughout all of the narratives that we collected was this great sense of legal estrangement that comes with these experiences. It was interesting to note that many of the individuals who have experienced interactions with school resource deputies have really have had this sense of estrangement ingrained in them from childhood that follows them not only into their adulthood, but also generationally. It's something that's passed on. By legal estrangement, we mean this sense that when individuals have these interactions with law enforcement, they feel that they don't feel seen, they feel outside of the system, they don't feel like they're connected to the solutions and the resources that may be provided. And this estrangement then bleeds into other facets of public life. And so there's this general sense of distrust with regards to government. And so these complaint systems that are being created are incredibly important. What we want to lift up today on our end, and there's various other recommendations that came from participants, so we'd be more than happy to share with you the reports that came forth. So I'll make sure to follow up and send those over to y'all. But the two things that I really wanted to bring into this space with respect to the complaint system is potentially creating transparency around the complaint dispositions. We recognize that this is a very difficult process that must be undertook because of POBAR and other laws that restrict certain information being released to the public, but transparency about complaint dispositions is incredibly important, especially to curb this legal estrangement that is really pervasive throughout these communities. In order to really gain the trust and to show folk that as county government, we are doing what we can and what we should to be responsive to people's needs and to the harm that's been caused to individuals, we need transparency to be of the utmost importance. And so if there's a way of creating a portal within this complaint system that allows for, at the very least, the limited legal transparency that can be provided at this point in time based on where we're at with transparency laws, that is something that I think would be a big game changer to the community as a whole. In addition to that, what we heard from folks was this general fear that even if they submit complaints about certain school resource deputies, they have this fear that not only will those not be heard, but even if they are heard and the individual deputy is removed from a certain school, they will just be placed in another school. And now that school community is subject to that same misconduct from that same individual because there is no transparency around complaints. Not only does the school community not know about this, but also the school administration does not know about this. And so there should be a process developed in this complaint system by which school resource deputies with substantial complaints filed against them should be removed altogether from this duty. To be a school resource officer or to operate within a school setting is an immense privilege. And outside of training and various other things, we need to really take into consideration that if we allow individuals who consistently and systematically harm the kids that we're trying to lift up and raise to be very much full, complete, whole citizens within our community, that we're just a part of the problem if we allow them to continue to be part of the school community. And so in order to protect that, not only should there be an internal process within the sheriff's department to remove individuals from such duty, but this information should be made very much available to the school administration, at the very least them. We recognize again that there's transparency laws that might prohibit information from being released to the public, the general public. But if a school or a school district is entering into a contract with the sheriff's department, there should definitely be a level of transparency about who they're going to get assigned to them and why individuals with complaints filed against them are still being allowed to participate in these spaces that, again, are very much privileged spaces that should have these guardrails to protect our children. Again, I'll be following up with you all via email to share the reports that have participant recommendations that span beyond complaint systems and really also offer alternatives with respect to school discipline. But we'd be more than happy as a Human Relations Commission to continue the conversation and to serve as stewards. We're great partners with the Sheriff's Department too, and believe that this new era that we're in with regards to the Sheriff's Department is one that really embraces equity in policing. And we want to continue this partnership by helping uplift community narratives and voices while also working hand in hand with local law enforcement to ensure that equity is accepted and adopted through and through with respect to law enforcement activities.
Thank you, Pierre. I really appreciate it and very much agree with both your comments about the bravery of the folks who have spoken, as well as about the need to address the transparency. It's something we're particularly interested in at the Probation Oversight Commission and want to follow through on to be able to push the limits around what's possible. Janae put the email in the chat, but also if you have a link to that report, you could just put that link in the chat and then Ismail or Janae can share it with the rest of the folks that are here. So thanks for being here. We'll go next to Kay. You can begin. Kay, can you hear me? Kay, it looks like you're unmuted on our end, so I'm not sure if you're somehow muted on your side. Janae, what do you think is going on there? Or Ismail?
We sent another request.
Okay.
Also, if they send an email, we can try to call them.
Oh, we can. Yeah, it worked. It worked. We can hear you, Kay.
I'm so sorry.
No, no problem. Please
Kept
begin.
going off. So I just wanted to make a quick comment about the policing and stuff. I know I grew up here in Los Angeles, and you know we've seen school police just kind of park and either stay in their vehicles or just kind of walk around the school and stuff. And I was kind of just, you know, the kids, I remember me as well. We used to always jump over the fence because they used to lock up the gates and stuff. And we used to, you know, jump over because we didn't have nowhere to play, nowhere to go that was safe and very close to where our parents would feel comfortable. And so we would jump over, play basketball and stuff. And I remember the police officers would come and they would tell us we were trespassing and give us tickets and kick us out. that led to a lot of my friends kind of going to the parks, where the parks were, there were a lot of gang members or, you know, people doing drugs or, you know, whatever that you didn't want your kid around or you didn't want to be around. But unfortunately, that was the situation during that time because we didn't have anywhere else to go. They turned to other means. You know, I was just wondering, like, what can be done about that? Because to this day, that's still being done. Like, they will rent out their parking lot to anybody that's willing to pay them, but they won't be willing to open the gates for these kids. I understand there's people that vandalize and stuff like that, but I mean, they could be dealt with accordingly, but not everybody's going inside trying to skate or play basketball or football or just hang out to the school where they would feel comfortable to. And like, obviously they're going there for a reason, and for them to be getting kicked out, it's kind of like they're getting kicked out to the wolves, kind of. That's how I felt it. I just wanted to know what could be done to change that.
Thank you, Kay. And I think you and some of the other callers have brought up this important issue about resource allocation and budgets being an expression of our values. And that certainly is part of this discussion. So I really appreciate those comments. I think that I don't see any numbers that we haven't called. So as promised, we will have others of these events. We're looking forward to hearing your comments. If you have comments that you'd like to provide to us directly about specific issues that you see in the complaint process that we've shared, I really want to hear them. We also are interested, especially in your ideas about outreach, or if you're involved in a particular school or a particular organization that has contact with parents and folks that are involved in school systems, we'd love to be able to talk to your group about this process once we get it launched. So please keep our information and give us ideas about how we can best do outreach. So I'll, with that, reiterate my gratitude to all the partners who have been involved in helping move this process forward. Thank you to all of you who shared today and for sharing even your personal and emotional stories. It means a lot to me. And that is really why we're doing this. And I profoundly appreciate it. So I think with that, we will say good evening and have you all continue to participate with us. We have a Probation Oversight Commission meeting next Thursday, April 25th at 9 a.m. You can watch it online or you can come see us in person at St. Anne's on Occidental. We'll be talking about a lot of interesting topics, including new charges against youth within the facilities and other reports that we're receiving, and also about the Probation Oversight Commission launching a dashboard with data about the young people who are incarcerated. So thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate your input and we look forward to seeing you soon.